Chosen One, it's no accident that you're watching this video right now. There's a greater purpose behind this encounter, a connection that transcends simply tapping a screen. You've come here because something within you resonates with the word chosen, that identity that has often been questioned, that certainty that so many have tried to shake. Today I want to speak directly to your heart about a journey you might be facing right now. The path of the chosen one that leads through rejections, misunderstandings, and even betrayals. You know, there are times in our lives when we feel deeply wounded by the attitudes, words, and actions of those who couldn't see the calling on our lives. Times when we ask ourselves, why is this happening to me? Why don't they recognize who I am? These questions echo in the silence of our rooms, on nights of tears and on days of doubt. And it's okay to feel that pain, but today I want you to understand a transformative truth. These wounds are not the final chapter of your story. Every rejection, every word of discredit, every door slammed shut wasn't in vain. What seemed like just pain has been used as an instrument in the hands of the Creator to mold in you a character that couldn't be formed in any other way. You are at the beginning of a new phase. A phase where you'll begin to realize that what seemed like just a painful scar is turning into a powerful testimony. Not for you to glorify yourself, but for the glory of God to be manifested through your story. Before we continue this journey together, I want to invite you to be part of our community. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave the phrase "I recognize my worth as chosen" in the comments. This small act of affirmation can be the first step toward a profound transformation in how you see your own journey. Get ready, because in the next sections, we're going to unveil how each rejection has actually been a divine redirection, and how God is working behind the scenes in your life, preparing a vindication that goes beyond any human expectation. Chosen One, think about how many times you've been rejected simply for being who you are. How many times your ideas have been dismissed, your talents minimized, your voice silenced. Perhaps you felt the weight of doors closing in environments where you expected to find welcome. Maybe you've experienced the bitter taste of betrayal from people you trusted completely. This pain is real and shouldn't be ignored or diminished. But I want you to realize something profound today. What man rejects is often exactly what God is setting apart for a special purpose. Remember the stone the builders rejected? It became the cornerstone, the most important of the entire building. Psalm 118:22. This isn't just a nice metaphor, it's a spiritual reality that manifests in the journey of the chosen. Every "no" you received when you presented your ideas might have been a divine detour to protect you from paths that seemed promising but weren't part of the higher plan for your life. That promotion that was given to someone else, that relationship that ended abruptly, that community that excluded you. All these painful moments may be serving as divine signs, redirecting your steps to the true purpose to which you were called. Human rejection, when seen through the eyes of faith, reveals itself as divine protection. How many times, looking back, haven't you realized that that closed door saved you from a path that would have been harmful to your journey? Those people who didn't believe in you actually propelled you to seek new horizons where your potential could truly flourish. Joseph, in the biblical account, was rejected by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused. Each of these rejections seemed like a confirmation that his dream was dead. Genesis 37:39. However, each "no" brought him closer to the moment when he would be positioned exactly where he needed to be to fulfill his calling. Rejection wasn't the end. It was an essential part of the path. The same happens with you. When those people questioned your ability, when they laughed at your dreams, when they belittled your calling, they didn't realize that they were participating unknowingly in the divine plan to position you exactly where you need to be. Their rejection wasn't a final verdict on your worth. It was a redirection to the true path you should follow. Chosen One, start seeing each rejection not as a definitive sentence on your worth, but as a redirecting signpost on your journey. Those harsh words, those looks of disbelief, those doors slammed shut, all this is serving a greater purpose. Not to destroy you, but to direct you precisely to where you should be, to the exact moment when your calling will manifest in fullness. The most important question isn't why you were rejected, but where this rejection is leading you. What glorious destiny awaits beyond these closed doors? Chosen one, there's a divine process that happens in the shadows of misunderstanding and pain. A process that few understand while they're in the midst of it, but that produces an unmistakable result. Like gold that needs to pass through fire so that all impurities can be removed. 1 Peter 1:7. Your character is being refined through the adversities you face. Realize that it's not the easy circumstances that reveal who we really are. It's the moments of pressure when everything seems to conspire against us that show what dwells in the depths of our hearts. When that person spoke harsh words about you, when that group excluded you, when your worth was publicly questioned, these moments not only tested your character, but were actively forming it. It's easy to remain in the position of victim. It's comfortable in a way to blame others for what we're feeling, for the lost opportunities, for the postponed dreams. But the chosen are called to a higher position, the position of overcomers in Christ, Romans 8:37. Not overcomers who crush their enemies, but who overcome the temptation to respond to rejection with bitterness, to betrayal with revenge, to contempt with hatred. The refinement of character doesn't happen despite trials. It happens because of them. That situation where you were publicly humiliated was developing true humility in you, not the kind that diminishes you, but the kind that recognizes your dependence on God above human approval. That moment, when you were betrayed by someone close, was cultivating in you a deeper capacity to forgive and discern. The rejection you experienced was strengthening your identity so that it no longer depends on the acceptance of others, but is firmly anchored in who you are in God. Notice how each trial has produced in you qualities that couldn't be developed in any other way. The patience you now demonstrate didn't come from moments of ease, but from long periods of waiting and uncertainty. The compassion you feel for others wasn't born in moments of joy, but in nights of tears when you cried out for understanding. The wisdom with which you now make decisions was forged in moments when you had to choose between reacting with anger or responding with love. This is the mystery of refinement. What was designed to destroy you is being used to transform you. Your scars aren't just marks of past wounds, they're badges of honor that testify to your perseverance. They're visible proof that you chose to keep going when it would have been easier to give up. Chosen one, you're ceasing to be defined by what was done against you, to be defined by what is being built within you. This is the most powerful transformation, when we stop seeing ourselves as victims of circumstances and begin to recognize ourselves as active participants in the process of divine refinement. It's not about what others did, but about what God is doing through it all. This refinement isn't the end of the story, it's just the preparation for the greater purpose that awaits you. Chosen one, there's a mistaken idea that may have taken root in your mind, that being a Christian means allowing others to treat you any way they want. That loving as Christ loved means having no boundaries, accepting any abusive behavior, or continuing in relationships that drain your essence. Today, I want to help you deconstruct this lie that has kept many chosen ones trapped in cycles of unnecessary pain. Setting healthy boundaries isn't a lack of love, it's in fact a profound expression of self-love and respect for others. Jesus, our greatest example, clearly demonstrated boundaries in various situations. He withdrew to isolated places when he needed to renew his strength, Luke 5:16. He directly confronted those who distorted the truth, Matthew 23. And at certain times, he chose not to answer provocations, preserving his energy for what really mattered. Boundaries aren't walls to keep others away. They're fences that define where you end and where the other begins. They're clear lines that communicate, I love you, but I won't allow behaviors that wound my soul. This clarity not only protects you, but also offers the other person the opportunity for growth. Perhaps you've remained in toxic environments for too long, believing that this was carrying your cross. Maybe you've tolerated words that diminish your worth, thinking that this was turning the other cheek. But realize, Jesus never called us to normalize abuse or internalize messages that contradict our identity as beloved children of God. Setting boundaries begins with recognizing your intrinsic worth. You don't need to prove your value to anyone. It was already established on the cross. From this understanding, you can begin to identify behaviors and relationships that don't honor who you are. You can learn to say no without guilt and yes with integrity. You can choose to distance yourself from situations that compromise your peace without feeling that you're failing in your Christian mission. This process doesn't happen overnight. It requires courage, discernment, and often the support of a healthy community. It requires you to recognize patterns that may have been normalized in your life for a long time. It demands that you practice new forms of communication, clear, respectful, but firm. Establishing boundaries isn't about revenge or retaliation. It's about protection and restoration. It's not about punishing the other person, but about creating space for healing and true growth. It's recognizing that some relationships need to be transformed, others need temporary distance, and some, unfortunately, need to be ended so that you can move forward in your calling. Chosen one, your kindness isn't your weakness, it's your strength when it flows from a place of integrity and clarity. Those who confused your gentleness with permissiveness, your patience with passivity, are about to witness a new facet of your character, the serene strength of someone who knows their worth, understands their boundaries, and walks with purpose. These healthy boundaries won't only protect you, but will create the necessary space for divine power to fully manifest in your life, revealing to those who doubted the true nature of your calling. Chosen one, there's a confusion that has harmed many on the path of faith, the idea that meekness is synonymous with weakness. How many times have you heard that to be truly Christian, you need to accept everything silently? Never take a stand, always give in. How many times have you felt that your gentleness was interpreted as insecurity, your patience as lack of courage, your forgiveness as absence of self-worth? It's time to restore the true meaning of biblical meekness. In antiquity, the word we translate as meek was used to describe wild horses that had been tamed. These animals didn't lose their strength, speed, or power. On the contrary, they maintained all their power, but now that strength was under control, directed with purpose, applied at the appropriate moment. Likewise, Christian meekness isn't absence of power, it's power under control. Jesus, described as meek and gentle in heart, Matthew 11:29, was the same one who confronted the money changers in the temple, Matthew 21:12-13, who openly challenged the corrupt religious structures of his time and who spoke uncomfortable truths with undeniable authority. His meekness didn't prevent him from setting clear boundaries, from naming injustice when he saw it, from protecting the vulnerable against the abuses of the powerful. Those who confused your gentleness with weakness are about to witness something transformative, the divine power that manifests through a heart surrendered to God but firm in its conviction. This manifestation doesn't come to crush or humiliate those who hurt you. It comes to establish the truth, to restore justice, to reveal the purpose that has always been there, waiting for the right time to flourish. True meekness is revealed when, having every right to retaliate, you choose to respond with grace. When, being able to use your influence to diminish those who diminished you, you choose to use your platform to uplift others. When, instead of shouting to be heard, you speak with the quiet authority of someone who knows their identity. Those who interpreted your kindness as permissiveness, your calmness as cowardice, your patience as passivity, are about to witness what happens when divine power manifests through a vessel that chose not to be contaminated by bitterness. They confused your lack of impulsive reaction with a lack of strength, without realizing that you were choosing your battles wisely, preserving your energy for what truly matters. Chosen one, your strength isn't in how much you can hurt back, it's in how much you can remain whole even when wounded. It's not in how loud you can shout, it's in the quiet firmness of your conviction. It's not in how many you can intimidate, it's in how many you can inspire through your example of dignity even under fire. Those who underestimated you didn't understand that what they interpreted as weakness was in fact a superior strength. The strength of someone who doesn't need to prove their worth because they recognize it as given by God, not by human approval. They will see in time that true strength doesn't shout, doesn't threaten, doesn't manipulate. It simply remains, flourishes, and transforms like a seed that silently breaks through concrete. Chosen one, there's a sovereign movement happening behind the scenes of your life. While you face rejections, misunderstandings, and even betrayals, God is orchestrating a divine alignment that surpasses any human understanding. As it is written, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Proverbs 16:9. This divine alignment doesn't follow human timelines, doesn't respect established hierarchies, and often defies all conventional logic. Observe how doors that seemed permanently locked to you now begin to open effortlessly. Notice how opportunities arise from unexpected places, how connections form without your direct interference. This isn't coincidence, it's divine alignment in action. It's God fulfilling his promise to open doors that no one can shut, doors that no one can open. Revelation 3:8. That workplace that rejected you? That community that didn't recognize your gifts? That relationship that belittled you? Perhaps they were doors that God himself closed, not to limit you, but to direct you to the spaces where your purpose will truly flourish. Often, what we interpret as human rejection is in fact divine protection, God guarding us from paths that seemed right but would lead us astray from our true destiny. This alignment doesn't depend on the approval of those who doubted you. It doesn't wait for the validation of those who questioned you. It doesn't need the permission of those who tried to diminish you. It operates according to a divine economy, where the last become first, where what was rejected becomes fundamental, where what was hidden is brought to light in the perfect time. While you remain faithful to your calling, maintaining your integrity even when no one is watching, God is moving people, circumstances, and opportunities to align with your purpose. Not because you're perfect, but because he is faithful. Not because you never fail, but because he never fails to fulfill his promises to those who seek him with sincerity. Those who underestimated you are now beginning to realize the mistake they made. Not because you sought to prove your worth, but because God himself lifted you up. Not because you planned an elaborate demonstration of your talents, but because you remained faithful in the small details, in obscurity, in moments that seemed insignificant. This divine alignment often manifests in ways that we couldn't predict or plan. That casual encounter that changed everything. That opportunity that arose when all doors seemed closed. That person who appeared in your life at the exact moment when you needed guidance. These aren't accidents. They're evidence of the meticulous care of a God who is attentive to the smallest details of your journey. Chosen one, as you continue walking in obedience, even without seeing the whole picture, God is aligning all the pieces. He is positioning you strategically, preparing divine encounters, opening doors that will transform not only your life, but the lives of many through you. This alignment doesn't follow your schedule or your deadlines. It operates in the perfection of divine timing, which is never late, even when it seems to take a long time. Chosen one, there's a quality that differentiates those who only dream of their purpose from those who effectively fulfill it: perseverance. That ability to keep moving forward even when no one else believes, when the evidence seems to contradict the promise, when the path becomes steeper than you ever imagined. The misunderstanding of others is perhaps one of the heaviest burdens that the chosen carry. When you receive a vision, a calling that others can't see, the loneliness of this knowledge can be overwhelming. How many times have you tried to explain what you feel, what you see on the horizon, only to be met with skeptical looks, well-intentioned, advice to be more realistic, or worse, with open ridicule? Noah built an ark under a clear sky, while generations called him crazy. Genesis 6:9. Joseph clung to a dream of leadership while serving as a slave and prisoner. Genesis 37:39-41. David was anointed king while he was still a shepherd, having to wait years until the promise was fulfilled. 1 Samuel 16. In each of these stories there was a common element: perseverance in the face of total incomprehension. You're not alone on this journey. Your experience of being misunderstood, of having your calling questioned, of seeing your motivations distorted, all this is part of the path of the chosen throughout history. And in each generation, what separated those who only received a calling from those who fulfilled it was the decision to persevere when it would have been so much easier to give up. Perseverance doesn't mean absence of doubts. It doesn't mean that you never question, never struggle, never have moments of deep discouragement. It means that after those moments, you choose to get up again. You choose to take another step. You choose to believe, not in the visible circumstances, but in the word that has been planted in your heart. Perhaps right now you're in a moment where everything seems to contradict what you know you're called to be. Maybe the doors remain closed, the resources seem scarce, and the voices of disbelief sound louder than ever. It's precisely at this moment that your perseverance is most vital and most powerful. When you choose to move forward even under the weight of misunderstanding, something supernatural happens. Your character is strengthened in ways that wouldn't be possible in easy circumstances. Your dependence on God deepens, creating roots that will sustain the great responsibilities that will come with your purpose. Your message gains an authenticity that can only come from someone who has lived what they preach. The misunderstanding of others isn't an obstacle to your calling, it's an integral part of it. It's the crucible where your conviction is tested and purified. It's the training ground where your spiritual resilience is developed. It's the context where you learn to depend not on human approval, but solely on divine approval. Chosen one, your perseverance isn't in vain. Every step taken in faithfulness, every choice to continue when everything in you wanted to give up, every moment where you chose to believe beyond the visible, all this is being recorded and honored. And in due time, those who didn't understand, your calling will witness the fruit of your perseverance, not for your personal vindication, but so that they recognize the faithfulness of God. Chosen one, have you ever wondered why so many people seem bothered by the way you are? Why your authenticity provokes such intense reactions in certain environments? The answer may be deeper than you imagine. You were created differently because you were called to a singular purpose. In a world that constantly pressures for conformity, your uniqueness isn't a defect to be corrected, but a divine design to be embraced. Those characteristics that others tried to modify in you, that peculiar way of thinking that some tried to normalize, that sensitivity that others called weakness, all these aspects are divine signatures, intentional marks placed on you for a specific purpose. David couldn't defeat Goliath using Saul's armor. He needed to embrace his own style, his own tools, his own approach. 1 Samuel 17. Esther couldn't fulfill her purpose by trying to be like anyone else in the court. She needed to be exactly who she was, positioned for such a time as this. Esther 4:14. Paul didn't try to imitate Peter in his ministry. He recognized his unique calling to the Gentiles and fully embraced that distinct path. Galatians 2. Your authenticity isn't a cause for shame. It's your greatest power. When you try to fit into molds that weren't made for you, you not only suffer internally, but you deprive the world of the unique contributions that only you can offer. The pressure to conform often comes disguised as good advice. Be more like so-and-so. Why can't you be normal? You need to fit in better. Behind these demands for conformity is usually the discomfort of others with what they don't understand or can't control. Your authenticity is a mirror that reflects their insecurity with their own identity. Your courage to be different challenges their commitment to the status quo. Chosen one, understand that your singularity isn't accidental, it's intentional. Your peculiar gifts, your unique sensitivity, your distinct way of seeing the world, even your painful experiences, all this was allowed because it would be necessary for the specific impact you were called to have. When you abandon the need for approval and fully embrace who you were created to be, something extraordinary happens. You begin to attract the people, opportunities, and connections that are aligned with your true purpose. No longer wasting energy trying to be who you're not, you release your full potential to be exactly who you should be. Those who rejected you for your uniqueness were unknowingly confirming your calling. By trying to fit you into their limited expectations, they were inadvertently pushing you onto the path of authenticity, the only path that will lead you to the full fulfillment of your purpose. Your difference isn't your limitation, it's your distinction. It's not your weakness, it's your unique strength. It's not your burden, It's your gift to the world. When you finally embrace this truth, you stop seeking validation in the wrong places and begin to operate in the quiet confidence of someone who knows and accepts their divine design. Chosen one, your authenticity isn't negotiable. It's the specific vessel that God chose to manifest His glory in a way that no one else could. When you honor that singularity, you honor the one who intentionally created you exactly as you are. Chosen one, every scar you carry tells a story. Every mark left by rejection, by betrayal, by misunderstanding isn't just a record of pain. It's a potential testimony of transformation. In a world that seeks to hide its imperfections, you are called to a different journey, allowing your wounds to become windows through which divine light can shine. There's a paradoxical beauty in God's plan. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is wasted. That situation that seemed to have stolen something precious from you, that period of darkness that seemed endless, that moment when you were deeply hurt by someone who should have protected you. None of this escaped the attentive gaze of the Creator, who promises to transform all things for the good of those who love Him. Romans 8:28. Scars are silent witnesses to your resilience. They don't just speak of the wound that existed, but of the healing that happened. They don't just tell the story of pain, but of survival. They don't just show where you were broken, but how you were restored. In a world full of people feigning perfection, your honest vulnerability has a power that pretended invulnerability will never have. The resurrected Jesus still carried the nail marks in His hands, John 20:27. He could have chosen to return with a body without marks, perfect with no visible reminder of suffering. But He chose to keep the scars, because sometimes it's precisely through our healed wounds that others find hope for their own pains. When you allow your scars to become part of your testimony, something extraordinary happens. The same rejection that should have destroyed you is transformed into a platform to encourage others who are going through the same valley. The same betrayal that should have made you bitter is converted into a deep capacity to demonstrate authentic forgiveness. The same cruel words that should have silenced you now fuel messages of hope that reach hearts that no one else could touch. This is the divine alchemy, the ability to transform the lead of pain into the gold of testimony. Not because pain itself is good, but because we have a Redeemer who specializes in creating beauty from ashes, strength from weakness, purpose from chaos. Isaiah 61:3. Chosen one, maybe you're still struggling to find meaning in some of your deepest wounds. Maybe you still wonder how something so painful could ever be transformed into something good. That's an honest question, and the process of transformation is rarely instantaneous, but it begins with a willingness. The willingness to offer your wounds to God, not just for personal healing, but for the greater purpose of testimony. When you stop seeing your scars as something to be hidden and begin to recognize them as an integral part of your story of redemption, you free yourself from the power that shame had over you. Your vulnerabilities, when embraced and integrated into your narrative, become bridges that connect you to others who suffer silently, believing that they're alone in their pain. This transformation of scars into testimony doesn't diminish the reality of what you suffered. It doesn't deny the impact of betrayal or minimize the pain of rejection. On the contrary, it fully recognizes the depth of the wound while declaring that your story doesn't end there. Chosen one, we've reached the end of this journey of reflection, but we're only at the beginning of the manifestation of what has been planted in your heart. Throughout these words, we've explored how the rejections you faced have been divine redirections, how the refinement of your character through trials is transforming you from victim to overcomer, how setting healthy boundaries is an essential part of your spiritual journey, how true meekness is power under control, not absence of strength, how God is orchestrating a divine alignment, opening and closing doors that no one can interfere with, how your perseverance in the face of misunderstanding is forging a powerful testimony, how your uniqueness isn't a mistake, but an intentional design, and how your scars are transforming into your most powerful testimony. Now, I want you to understand a final truth. There's a divine vindication that surpasses any human expectation. This vindication doesn't come because you sought revenge, but because you remained whole when it would have been easier to compromise. It doesn't come because you manipulated circumstances, but because you trusted in God's perfect timing. It doesn't come so that you can boast, but so that the name above all names is glorified through your story. Divine vindication isn't about others realizing too late what they missed out on. It's about you discovering that you were never alone, that every tear was counted, that every silent prayer was heard, that every moment of faithfulness in obscurity was recorded. It's about realizing that, while others could only see your limitations, God was seeing your potential. While others were discarding you, God was preparing you. While others were closing doors, God was reserving for you a place at the table that no one could deny. This vindication often comes in ways that we couldn't predict or plan, not according to our timeline, but in divine perfect timing. And when it comes, you realize that the purpose was never to humiliate those who humiliated you, but to uplift a testimony that inspires even those who doubted. Chosen one, your elevation doesn't depend on human approval. It isn't conditioned on how many recognize your worth now. It's grounded in the faithfulness of a God who promised that no weapon formed against you shall prosper, Isaiah 54:17. A God who turns curses into blessings, who even makes your enemies live at peace with you, Proverbs 16:7. While you remain faithful to your calling, without compromising your integrity, without seeking revenge with your own hands, without abandoning the love that is the trademark of Christ's followers, you witness the gradual but undeniable fulfillment of the promise. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act, Psalm 37:5. This isn't a journey of retaliation, but of restoration, not of vengeance, but of victory through grace, not of proving your worth to those who rejected you, but of fully living out the purpose for which you were called. Chosen one, keep moving forward. Remain steadfast, your time is coming. And when it comes, many will understand why you didn't give up, why you didn't compromise, why you remained faithful when everything seemed lost. This is your journey. This is your story. This is your testimony, and it has only just begun.